Alright.
Alright. This is Cohn, Wolfe, Robert Sikes podcast / video. First competition experiences.
Who's going first?
You go for it, man. You're the guest.
Okay. Alright. First show experience. And if any of you guys, if any of my followers, my real followers, followed me from way back in the day, from the bodybuilding.com days, this is where it all started. So basically what happened was, at the time I was living down in Scottsdale, Arizona. I believe I was about 28 years old. And at this time I had no plans on ever doing a show. I just loved working out. I had a football background, and so just from training for sports and football, I just loved training. And I was kind of getting into supplements, protein and creatine and all that stuff. And so I'd made I'm pretty sure it was muscleandstrength.com at the time. I placed an order, I think, for just some protein and a pre-workout or something. And in my box, I got this little handbook that said the Solution Diet. And before this, I had never followed a structured diet ever. I'd never weighed anything. I'd never tracked anything. And so I'm kind of going through this book, and I'm like, okay, it had a kind of a structured meal plan in it, meal 1, 8 ounces of chicken, etc. And for some reason, it kind of flipped in me to finally pursue an actual structured diet. So I went and got a food scale, all that stuff. And for the first time in my life, and I think I was 27, 28 years old, I finally followed a structured diet. And it was amazing. I think it was just after, it was 8 weeks into the diet, so just 2 months, I started I took some progress photos. It was the first time that I actually looked in the mirror, and I'm to me, I was even holy crap, this is what diet, when people always talk about oh, diet's the biggest part of the equation, I'm now I finally saw that kind of look in the mirror that I wanted to see for so long, where you start seeing the separation in the muscle and vascularity popping out. I was on bodybuilding.com, and if anybody's familiar with bodybuilding.com, the forums, they have a post your picture section. And so I just posted hey, updated photos or whatever, 8 months into diet, and it just freaking exploded with all these people wanting to know more about my progress and this diet and everything like that. And it's still on there today. You can find it. It's 100 pages long of just constant forum formats, page after page, of people wanting to know my workouts and how I structured the diet and all this stuff. And so what happened was I kept rolling with this diet, and I just kept getting leaner and leaner and leaner. And at the time, the guy who devised the diet, his name was Derek Charles Boy, I think is what it is. And he was kind of affiliated at the time with Cybation, the makers of Extend. And so I kind of messaged him, and I'm I think he saw my progress too, and he was holy crap. He's he was willing to help me out for free. And he kind of said, hey, you know what? At the time, my meals were 20 grams of fat per meal. And so he said, you know what, to kind of reduce your calories a little bit and get leaner, let's go 15 grams of fat per meal. And so I started doing that, and I just started getting super, super lean. And so I'm sitting here following this bodybuilding.com thread that I started, and everybody's bro, you need to compete. And I'm just at the time I was still on the weekends, I'd go out and I was partying with my buddies and stuff like that. And I'm oh, it's going to In-N-Out Burger. I do one nice, and this was part of the diet, which I liked. You were allowed one free meal every week. So for me, it was either In-N-Out Burger or a big Domino's pizza or something. And so I was doing kind of similar to a refeed or a cheat meal. And so I would do that usually every Saturday or Sunday, but then get back on the diet after that. And so what happened was, is just kind of through the forum, through the bodybuilding.com thread, I had people that kind of helped me pick out. They're hey, there's this natural show in I think it was in Mesa, Arizona. It was on it was right before my birthday. It was August 28th, 2010, and it was the OCB. So this was the 2010 OCB Arizona Natural. And what's funny is, do you remember Pedro? Or Pedro, you might not have met him. Anyway, he's kind of big in the, or he's a natural pro, but I met him at that show, but it just kind of happened was, again, it was just this finding this diet book and following it, and then a bodybuilding.com, kind of a huge swarm of people persuading me to like do this show is what got me to like finally say, you know what, I committed to it. And what's funny was, it was only like I only had 6 weeks before I kind of committed to it. So was it the most prepared contest prep? No. But, you know, I felt like, you know, for a first time show and stuff like that, I wanted to pursue it. And so I did, and I'll still never forget the night before, just tossing and turning in bed. I could not, my nerves were just so high, because I'm not a person that I never like to like talk in front of crowds. And so I had this fear of just like all these people, oh my God, I'm gonna be up there, and you're like, I'm gonna mess up on stage, I'm gonna screw up my posing. And so I didn't sleep at all the night before. I remember, like, I think it was like 4 a.m, I just couldn't sleep. So I was like, screw this, I got out of bed and I put on Pumping Iron. I was just like, to burn time.
Hey, that's a good way to do it, though.
Yeah, and so I just started watching Pumping Iron until I had like my first meal and all that stuff. And at the time too, I was living down in Arizona, and so I didn't have any like family members there. I didn't even invite like any of my local friends. It was just kind of something that I was like pursuing on my own. And luckily, at the show, I ended up meeting some really cool people backstage. But at the time, I didn't invite anybody, so I just kind of felt like I was so just kind of, I don't know, alone in this first show. But it was a great experience. I ended up doing both the novice and open. For people who aren't aware, novice is kind of like for first-time competitors, so it's kind of more of like a beginner type class. And I thought I had won the overall in that. That's what most people told me after prejudging, but I ended up getting second in the tall class to kind of like a bigger, more muscular guy. He wasn't as conditioned, but he was bigger, more muscular. And then I went into the open class, and I got top 3 in open. And so I was pretty stoked about that for a first show. But I think the best thing was just everybody backstage was just like, they're like, this is your first show? And it's like, yeah, just kind of winged it, and 6 weeks out, kind of, decided to do this. And so I think it was just the feedback of everyone kind of at the show kind of gave me such positive feedback. And then, obviously, like, doing well. Yeah, it was, yeah. So my very first show, I did what's great was I did a natural show. I got polygraph tested, went through all of that. And so first show out of the gate, did a natural show. And then from there, I was kind of hooked. I kind of got to see too, at the time, the guy that had won the show and won the pro card, kind of seeing like, okay, so this is kind of what it takes to get to that pro level. And after that very first show, it was like, next goal, pro card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was like my total, just like, okay, this is my goal now after doing this first show. And next goal is like pro card.
And that was, you got it the next show too, right?
No. I didn't.
You've done 4 total now?
Yes. But yeah, so I ended up doing, what happened was I had a coach, Tyler Mayer. If you guys are familiar with Tyler, he contacted me. I think he was at that OCB show that I did. And he saw me and was like, hey, he hit me up on, I think it was Facebook. I was like, hey man, like, dude, I saw you at the OCB show. He's like, dude, you have so much, whatever, talent or whatever potential. He's like, you should let me prep you. He's like, I'll do it for free and everything like that. And so he convinced me to do, at the time I was moving back up here to Washington. And so we started prepping while I was still down in Arizona, and I literally moved to freak back up to Washington State in the middle of a prep, and ended up doing actually the Washington State Natural. This was in 2011 when it was downtown Seattle at a place called the Moore Theater. And what's funny is this is a show that actually Ogus did. I didn't know Matt Ogus at the time, but Matt Ogus was doing the same show. He was in the short class, I was in the tall class. And long story short, I was aiming for a pro card, but I ended up losing in the tall class to the guy that won the overall and the pro card. His name's Benny Mobley.
Yeah.
Okay, so Benny, you know, he's a lot older, had a lot more muscle. At the time, I kind of was like, nah, I thought that I should have won, but then now, honestly, really looking back, he deserved it because he was like pro ready. You know what I mean? He had the muscle and things like that to like, you know, get that pro card and go right into a pro lineup. Whereas me, I still had so much room to improve and grow and stuff like that. So my second show, I got second in the open tall. So.
Very nice. Yeah, Benny's a cool dude.
Yeah, no, he's like, yeah, I mean, he's got that, again, I think he's in his late 40s.
Yeah.
So, again, it's that muscle maturity, and it's just, yeah, it really shows up on stage, especially when you're next to, like, you know, somebody like me who hasn't been competing nearly as long or training nearly as long. It really, really shows.
Could you tell the difference between like the OCB Federation versus the WNBF?
No, it was pretty. I will say, like, people don't realize shows down in the South. I would say like Arizona and Texas, California, Nevada, whatever. All those states, man, bodybuilding is a lot bigger.
A lot bigger there.
So I think I had, when I did my very first OCB show, I kid you not, I think I had like 23 competitors just in my tall class. Like huge classes. So a lot more competitors down there. So I'll say that the shows down in like the southern states are usually going to be a lot bigger. Where you come up here to like Washington, and I'll say like, let's just kind of say maybe per class, you're more like in the maybe like 8 to 10 kind of range in that ballpark. So smaller shows, still really competitive, but down there in South Midwest shows, yeah, those are like a lot bigger.
Well, the Muscle Mayhem is WNBF, right? That's in California?
Yeah, and I've been to that. I actually went down to that one in 2013. I think it was a couple weeks, or maybe 2 months after I'd won my my natural pro card. I went down there and got to see, I think it was like Matt Ogus was competing, Chris Lovato was competing, I think Chris Elkins even competed at that show, Kevin Riley. But the most important thing was that was the first time I had ever seen a natural pro lineup in person.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I'll still never forget. It's like, okay, all of a sudden you see the amateurs, you're like, oh wow, they're impressive. And all of a sudden the pros come out and I'm like, okay.
Over the level.
Whoa. Like, just like the muscle, the conditioning, the hardness, like total different. I mean, it was such a shock for me to see that in person and see like, oh my gosh, like, and it was perfect just to see the amateurs first and see some really impressive amateurs, and then all of a sudden the pros walk out and just like, okay, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm not ready to be there.
Yeah, well, they've all been, I mean, natural bodybuilding is like it's an old man sport, you know, they're much older than us and been at it for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 10 years older than me almost.
Yeah. Like I said, I was a late bloomer though. Like I said, first show was literally the night before my 28th birthday. And like I said, before that, I had no desires to, it's funny, I think I look back when I was in my early and mid 20s and I'm like, there's no way I could ever get put on one of those little Speedos and get oiled up and flex in front of a crowd. I was like, no way I could ever do that. And then sure enough, you know, I ended up doing it. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it took a lot for me to like kind of get the courage to kind of get over that stage fright. But I think anybody, I try to tell first time competitors this, once you get up on stage, you kind of realize the crowd in front of you is very dark.
Yeah. So
you don't really see the people out on stage. As opposed, I had this fear that I was just going to see all these eyeballs just like staring at me, you know, and it's not like that at all. And I feel like once you get posing and your adrenaline kicks in, that's what a lot of us like, you know, it's people get hooked on this sport because I think a lot of it's that adrenaline that you get when you're on stage and you're hitting poses and all that stuff. It really is a rush that if you've never experienced it, it's one of those things. I think this is what keeps people coming back for more and more is getting that high and getting that rush of competing on stage.
It is crazy that you spend, you know, hours upon hours in the gym, in the kitchen, and then you're on stage for, you know, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then and then that's all.
That's it. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's why sometimes it is nice to, if you can in your show season maybe plan, maybe at least like 2 shows, because at least that way you get some more stage time. Because you're right. My first 2 preps in 2010 and in 2011, there were just 1 shows and then done. So yeah, same thing where I put all this time and effort, got my 5-10 minutes of that of like stage time, and then that's it.
Speaking of showtime, isn't the Empire? I've heard the Empire this year is actually going to be in April instead of May. Have you heard of that?
Empire Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really only a week or 2 after our show.
Yeah.
I think.
But it was in May, I think, last year.
I'd have to double check that. I thought it was always kind of around our show. I thought.
And there's the GBO Federation, which is new. And that's,
Spokane now has a GBO Federation, which
that's I think on the 6th. So it's only like a week before the one the national show. I'm kind of flirting with the idea of doing all 3. Bam,
you
bam,
are?
bam.
Oh.
I'm considering it.
I don't know. I'm not ever going to talk negatively about an organization, but I feel like the GBO show is still not really big enough yet to where
I don't know anything about GBO. It's the first year I've ever heard about him. I think he's only been doing it here 2 years now. If even that,
yeah. Like I said, in Spokane, if people aren't familiar, we have no natural shows here in Spokane, which is unfortunate. I really wish we could get like a natural show promoted over here. All we have is like 2 NPC shows, which if you're not familiar, NPC is not tested. So that's why a lot of us, like me and Robert, are going over to the North Seattle in Marysville up at the Tulalip Casino. That's where our show will be, because that's a legit WMBF, which is a total credible natural show.
Yeah, it's really good federation.
Yeah, very good. As far as like the drug testing and all that stuff. And I believe they even started like doing like an off-season type random drug testing for competitors.
I think they have like a fall show now.
Yeah, no, they do. That's the thing. There's been a lot of new. In the past, there used to just be the one April Kevin and Linda show that was the only natural pro qualifier offered, and now I think it's grown to where they might have 3. There might be 3 WMBF pro qualifiers in Washington State, because I know Aaron Orton, he won his at one of the other WMBF shows this year.
He did real good.
Yeah, he looked great. So I mean, that's great though. I feel like we're getting more. I just wish we had one here in Spokane.
Yeah.
We had one in our backyard. We don't have to go and get a hotel and all those extra
It's kind of nice though to like, I know it costs more, but it's kind of nice to go and make that part of the whole experience.
True. And plus you get a chance to go, and the best part too, like at least I think you got to experience this, the best part about natural bodybuilding is kind of meeting like other competitors at the show, and just like getting to talk with people who totally can relate to like what everything you've been going through and contest prep. And we at this show have this year we got so many freaking great people that are currently prepping for this show. We got Lionel and Micah, Darren Foote, who's a guy that I think you're going to compete against, one of my clients.
I think I'll be in the same class as Darren and Micah.
Oh my gosh! Okay, yeah. So all you guys are going to be in that. And then
Lionel, he's going to try to do another show, and then qualify.
I think Lionel's his plan of attack is to do a pro qualifying show as soon as possible before our show, get in hopes of getting his pro card, so that way he can come do the pro show with me.
And if he doesn't, is he just going to do the amateur?
I'm not sure what his plan of attack is if he doesn't get the pro card at that show. I think he'd have to keep. My assumption is do another one until he gets his WMBF pro card back.
So I can bid against him again.
Yes.
Lionel beat me last time. I'm coming for you, buddy.
I mean, that is one thing I will admit. One thing I'm not a huge fan of is this whole I feel like once you get a pro card, you shouldn't have a deadline.
Yeah, especially for a year.
Yeah, that's just too soon. I mean, people don't realize
Is that just for the first year? I've heard that if you do a pro show, like within that year, then for the next show, you don't have to keep doing one every year.
I think it's if you for a pro, I believe it's you have to compete every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
For WMBF. I believe.
That's still pretty quick.
Yeah, because I actually I'm an IFPA natural pro, but I have to submit this form to get my WMBF pro card for this show. And so they told me that now that I'll be a WNBF pro as well, I have to compete every 2 years or I'll lose that pro card.
Really?
Yeah. You want to go over yours now?
My first Are you done with yours?
Yeah. I mean.
What was some of the negatives? Like, was there anything that just like struck you throughout the whole first competition prep that's like, oh, this was terrible, I hate this, never doing this again, I'll change this for next time?
No, I mean, I feel like everything honestly in it was positive. Looking back on it and stuff like that, it's funny too, I was like, at the time, I literally was trying to use YouTube videos for posing.
Yeah.
And I look back, I literally have videos on my YouTube channel still to this day from when I was practicing, and oh my gosh, everything was so off. And luckily I was at a Gold's Gym in Scottsdale, and I think I was a week out from the show, and somebody was like, oh hey, they approached me, and are you competing soon? I said, yeah, in a week. And they said, oh, is anybody helping you with your posing? And they referred me to a guy, his name was Ernie, and he kind of helped me out with some posing stuff, thankfully. But I was like totally scared fright on the posing stuff. It felt so awkward.
Yeah.
A lot of first-time competitors will get this. People always underestimate how hard it is to learn, especially for a first-time show, the posing.
Yep.
That's always so much. It's so much harder than it looks to get all of the muscle control and to balance and just all of that. So.
And there should be no excuse to not have good posing on your first show. Like, you have so much time put into it. The worst thing is to like put that work in and then.
But I feel like a lot of people, they kind of lazy out on the posing, and all they focus on is the workouts and the stuff and like all that stuff. And all of a sudden, show day comes, and you can always tell the guys they're shaking. Oh, great.
What's yours saying?
Internal temp high? Oh, great.
I don't know what's going on with these cameras here.
Our cameras are zoning out.
All right, first competition experiences for me. Miserable. I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Most people don't.
I was under the impression that I had to bulk up and get huge before I cut down. That's what you see all the pro bodybuilders do, you know? So I went from 115 is when I started working out. I bulked up to 230. So and I'm 5'7", so 230, I was pretty round. I had a big fat face. And then I gave myself 3 months, so 12 weeks to prep. And I bulked up 230 thinking I was going to compete at 200. And I competed at 153. So I lost the next 50 pounds.
One thing we all underestimate is how much fat we need to lose.
Oh yeah, give yourself plenty of time. I mean, I was starving myself. I went from 6,000 calories a day bulking to, I think at my lowest I was 1,200 calories.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like in starvation mode. And I was full-time college student, working and prepping for my first show without a coach. And I'd literally be in the gym crying. I remember the last month I'd be crying as I was lifting because I'd be just like so depleted, so drained, and I'd just be beating myself up internally, and it was not good. Strength went down. I think I lost like 100 pounds on my squat. And like on my meal plan, I don't remember where I even got my meal plan. I was using my FitnessPal, and I think initially, I don't remember what I was doing initially. At one point or another, I found Lane Norton's article on Bodybuilding.com about peak week.
At least you found a good resource there.
Yeah. That was really good. But that's why I like looked for some of my posing stuff too. But for my diet was just, very minimalistic. Like I would do cardio in the morning, and then I would be so excited to open up this Tupperware and have like 3 spoonfuls of old cold oatmeal.
Oh man.
It was bad. And motivation was gone. And then I think there were points that I'd be working out and I'd be so drained. I would it's kind of morbid to say, but I would imagine somebody holding a gun to my head saying, if you don't give me everything you got, I'm putting a bullet between your eyes. That's what pushed me to make it through the workout. And it was not healthy. Not a healthy relationship with food or training or anything. And it was just a depressing, dark time for sure. And I remember the night before the competition, I was sitting in a hotel room. My best friend Charlie and my mom and my brother were with me. And like my mom was shaving me, to get ready for the show, and I was literally
Welcome to bodybuilding.
sitting there, almost like I almost just decided I wasn't gonna do the show the night before at the hotel room. Like that's how disgusted with myself. I wasn't confident in my ability to do well or anything, and it was pretty rough. But then after the show, after I stepped off stage, I like sat there in the posing pump up room after everybody else had left and reflected on the whole process. And it was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, bar none, more mentally than physically. And I won. I got first place. But like to know that I put forth that work and determination and discipline and consistency for 3 months, and then to succeed at the end of it all, it was like the most satisfying feeling I've ever experienced, and I haven't experienced anything since then that can match it, and then I've been hooked ever since.
So yeah, you love that challenge.
Yeah, no, I crave the challenge. I don't want an easy life. I want it to be hard,
Yeah, I think that's what I feel like a contest prep. There's nothing that will test you more about yourself, and that's why so many people fail. Is because bodybuilding is not for the weak, the mentally weak people. They cannot sustain it. They cannot do it. And I think, especially for me, having a background in athletics, I feel like which really helps with like mental discipline and things like that, kind of molded me. Oh, mine's going off again. Oh well. Molded me to kind of like be much more prepared and mentally suited for doing contest preps. Like I truly feel like I'm unbreakable.
Yeah.
And like once I flip the switch and go into contest prep, I'm like this totally different person, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, game on. I'm like a robot.
Oh yeah,
and,
it's machine
mentally
mode.
I can't be broken. I mean, you hear so many people talking about, oh, I can't sustain a diet, and I'm hungry, and I'm like, this is like part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can stick to a diet to the T for a week, for a day or for a week. Yeah. But if you can stick to it consistently and fight through the hunger and like the temptation to go out with your friends every single day consistently, for the entirety of your prep, that's where it becomes difficult. That's what separates the men from the boys right there.
Yep.
Because it's not, I mean, you can do anything for a week. Anybody can do anything for a week. But to do it for months at a time, that's where it gets hard.
Yep. Fight through the hunger, and that's where like a lot of times you're gonna have workouts where your body just tells you it's like no. Your body's like no, not feeling it. But that's where you have to mentally push through it, and still during contest prep you need to focus on giving those workouts 100% intensity, because that's what's gonna keep that muscle on your body. The soonest you start letting your fatigue and you're not gonna have as high energy levels, and then all of a sudden you start letting up on all your workouts, I feel like especially for the natural competitor, that's where muscle loss really is prevalent.
Oh yeah. People in my experience, they like look for an excuse while they're in prep to train lighter or to like just half-ass things. Yep. Like your body keeps that muscle because it needs that muscle. And if you're not working to the same output that you were in the off season, it doesn't need that muscle, so it's going to get rid of it.
Exactly.
And I don't know, like you're in a calorie depletion, you're not getting as much sleep, you're training harder, you're doing cardio. It's super easy to say, oh, I'm in prep, I'm on a deficit, I'm going to half-ass this workout and leave early so I can eat my meal and go to sleep.
Yep.
But to have that switch turned on and say, no, I'm going to go just as hard, I'm going to go harder than I did in the off season, I'm going to go harder than I've ever gone before, that is what makes you succeed. That's what gives you something to be proud of after you step off that stage. If you don't, and if you do half-ass it, then I don't know. Like, the reason I'm so proud and so hooked is because I didn't give myself any excuses throughout the first prep.
Yeah. No, and to be honest, I mean, I remember you showing me your first show pictures, and you're actually in really good condition. I mean, for a first show, I thought you looked great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas you see a lot of guys in their first show, and you're kind of like, whoa. And they might say something like, well, yeah, bro, I was holding a lot of water.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Water. You were out of shape.
You were out of shape, bro. Like, you just didn't give yourself enough time to get conditioned, whereas, you know, I felt like, you know, I'd say both of us, for first shows, we came in with pretty damn good conditioning, which is a great thing right out of the gate for our first show.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we still had a lot to learn.
Oh yeah, we had a lot to learn.
We had a lot to learn, but I think for
we put in the work
show,
though.
Yeah, we put in the work.
Yeah. That's good.
But yeah. All right.
What are some of the misconceptions? Let's talk about misconceptions for first time competitors going in, like what to do with peak week, and what are some things that we thought was right going in our first show that we've learned since is far from the truth.
Okay. I would say I was kind of lucky at the time too, because at the time I was kind of talking with Derek Charles Boy, who again, he was associated with Cybation. So I think at the time Lane Norton was as well. So a lot of principles and peak week protocols that Lane had used, Derek was a believer as well. So I was kind of lucky that right out of the gate, especially for a natural competitor, most people are gonna, you know, go with the old school myth of like cutting water. Mm-hmm. That's like gotta cut water. If you look at every single bodybuilding peak week, you're gonna hear dehydration, cutting water. Whereas that's the worst thing that a natural competitor can do, is completely eliminate and cut out their water. Because as a natural competitor, water actually helps fill us out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Water is what helps us get that pump. So if you see a lot of natural competitors that are dehydrated on stage, you'll see a flatness, and they'll tell you too, they're like, oh my God, I was trying to like pump up and I couldn't even get a pump. Yeah, because you're dehydrated. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm like, you looked way better when you had water in you when I saw you a week out in the gym. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is like people that are cutting water. Luckily, I've never cut water for a show. I've always kept my water in. And then I think a lot of people too, manipulating sodium. I think a lot of people would assume that salt is going to bloat them, whereas salt is another thing too that'll help fill us out.
Yeah, exactly. So
I actually add sodium on show day, like add salt to meals and stuff like that. I had you do that.
Yeah.
So sodium and water for the natural competitor are actually great things to help fill us out.
Did you rebound after?
Oh.
Let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people don't know about that. A lot of people don't talk about that.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that when we were talking about first show experience. So here's what. Oh my gosh, this is bad. Because you gotta realize, so my first contest prep, it was pretty, all the foods and everything, it was the traditional bro type meal plan. I mean, I was like Ezekiel toast. I wouldn't even, eat regular bread. It was all like, everything had to be super, super clean. I don't even know if I was using seasonings on my meat. It was that bad.
Yeah. And
so obviously as soon as the show is over is when, okay, now all of a sudden the filter is gone of that discipline. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, so here was my rotation of restaurants that I attacked, because it wasn't one.
You went all in, huh?
Oh yeah, we went straight to In-N-Out Burger first, and I think I had 2 double doubles with fries and a Diet Coke. That was always my staple at In-N-Out. And then, I kid you not, I was at In-N-Out finishing my burgers and I called Domino's. And I think I did like a medium or whatever pizza. So I went and picked that up, took that home. And I was just like, one thing people don't realize is it's almost like that hormone that tells you that you're full.
Leptin.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. So you have this immaculate capacity to sit there and just eat and eat and eat and eat and not feel full, which is dangerous. Because all of a sudden I just had these 2 double cheeseburgers, fries, and I was still starving. So I went and I had like a pizza. I was still hungry.
Oh yeah.
So I had Cold Stone down the street. So I went and got like a thing of Cold Stone, and I think if there was one other thing, I might have got like a bag of candy or something like that. And so all of a sudden I devoured all this food. I can't remember if it was within like an hour or 2. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden it like hit me and I freaking hurled.
Really?
Oh my god, yeah, I hurled. Oh yeah.
I wish I couldn't hurt. I tried.
Man. It was horrible. Worst feeling ever was like when it kicked in and stuff. I was like, oh my god. And bad.
My whole family was there. We all went to Red Lobster. It was right down the road from the venue of the show. And so we all sitting around the table, and I think I ordered like 3 entrees, and then I had like they had those garlic bread things at Red Lobster, you know.
Yeah.
I ate like 2 baskets full of them, and then I think 2 or 3 different desserts, and they also had like these frozen lemonades, like these tall frozen lemonades. I think I had 4 of those, and I'm sitting there just eating like relentlessly, and then
again, you
don't get
feel full.
And my mom's watching me, and she's just like watching my face get bigger as I'm talking to the family. And like that night at the hotel room, I couldn't throw up, I couldn't use the bathroom. It was all just, I think probably because I'd cut my water for that first show, my body was like a sponge. I just held on to all of that. And I literally just laid in the bathtub, an empty bathtub at the hotel room, and just tossing and turning. Couldn't sleep, couldn't throw up, couldn't use the bathroom, just stayed there in pain. And then the next day I woke up and I was like 20 pounds heavier, all that water weight. My face was like fat again, like 230 fat when I was in the off season. I'm like, 3 months, the hardest time of my life, totally wasted.
I was just gonna say that's the one thing that I think you hear a lot about post competition prep depression. And a lot of it, what happens is because you're so used to these months, whatever now, seeing this amazing, lean, hard, amazing physique in the mirror. And then all of a sudden, you go out that post-show and binge and do all these things. And in a matter of, literally 24 hours, it can be gone.
Yep.
After months and months of dieting and looking great and seeing all these striations and veins, you go out and you get crazy and you binge and all that. And then it's just so sad how that fast it's gone.
Yep.
It's gone.
Yeah, I was depressed for like 4 months, and it wasn't just from that. Like after that I had eating disorders. Like I would literally,
it's common in this
know how to eat.
Field.
Yeah, I mean it was just like I would eat 20,000 calorie meals, man. Like it was no joke.
Yeah.
I would go to, I think one time I went to IHOP, and my ticket was $40 for just me, and I ordered chicken fried steak covered in gravy with a waffle, and I ordered one of every kind of pancake on the menu. And they make lots of pancakes at IHOP.
That's amazing, yeah. I was just gonna say it's pretty normal. I feel like, and I think after one of my shows, I went to like a breakfast place up here on the South Hill when it was Maggie's, and I was just like ordering breakfast, and I'm like, can I just get one of each breakfast entree? The lady looked at me like, I'm like, you don't understand. I just do this. You try to explain to a normal person and they don't get it.
Yeah.
But anybody that's like competed and gone through this stuff, they can relate with like what we're going through. But the normal average person looks at us like we're crazy.
Because I mean, it's not normal to be able to eat what 5 people could eat.
Exactly.
But you find a way to stick it on there for somehow or another. That's pretty much first competition.
That's good. Yeah.
Right there.
I think we kind of covered everything. Anything else you feel like we need to?
Well, I do want to talk about what we're doing for this prep. We can do this in my closet, or we can do this in there, because that's just coming in the podcast.
Okay, let's do it on the podcast.
Okay, cool.